I want to talk about the marketer's role now, because marketing has changed so dramatically, right? Right back in the beginning of time, for me at least, I started work in the early 1990s. I kind of had this stuff to deal with. It was a really simple, short list. And as time's gone on, it's grown. We've seen new technologies come along. There are more and more channels. There are more and more ways that I can reach people. By the 2000s, the chart was getting full. By 2011, it's over full. You cannot fit it all on. And so we've gone from this place, what Seth Godin describes, I think very, very distinctly, very cleverly, as from a scarcity of spectrum to a scarcity of attention, right? The spectrum, there was only one TV ad channel that you could put something on, and you had to run your ad then, or that's all you got. There was only a certain number of newspapers. Now we've got all this other stuff, and people don't have enough attention to listen to everything that's going on. It's radically different for marketers. And this is what it looked like when I started out. That was me. I sat in my ivory tower, as all good marketeers do. And the man came to me and he said, here's some money. I want you to go and solve all the world's problems. Here's some money, some budget, and go out and do something. So I said, right, okay, fine, I'll make some TV ads, put some ads in the newspaper. There was even a thing called the Yellow Pages back then. I think that doesn't exist anymore. And that thing up there, that's not an email, by the way. You may not remember this. This is a real letter. It's actual paper. You print something out, and then you'd get a stamp and you'd stick it on. You give it to a man, lick the stamp, and you had to give it to someone, and then eventually it arrived and it went through your door. So that was what was going on there. And really, it was me in control. I was just pumping stuff out on my schedule, on my terms, with my budget. There was one other thing, customer care line. Frankly, this was all we had in the early 90s that was giving us an inbound fee. Yeah, we could go and do focus groups and research, but you know what? Most of the time, people couldn't get at us in our ivory tower. So people would ring up, they'd complain about something. It was fine, we sent them some vouchers or whatever. We kept them happy. Nobody else needed to know about it. It was nice. Then, in the 2000s, I started noticing all these people popping up because my perfect world of marketing, pumping out messages had changed because these people were everywhere and they were talking to each other. Some of them were even talking about my ads, some of them were even talking about my brands, some of them had opinions that I didn't agree with, and they were talking right over the top of my brilliant multi-million-dollar marketing campaign.
So, sorry, Allister, weren't they doing that already in the past, etc., in terms of what you said earlier? It's just now you noticed it.
Yes, they were doing it, but they didn't have a voice that allowed them to have a global reach, potentially, right? So that Panda Pops guy.
Simon at Coke about that. He'll tell you how social networking worked in 1986.
Yeah.
When they tried to kill Coke.
Yeah. I'm not saying consumers had never had power. I'm not saying that's the case. But it was much harder to mobilize than it is today because you can have a brand that's really low interest, really not that interesting, but you can reach your network of 100 people, maybe 50 people, instantly with an opinion, which can damage brands, right? And you just couldn't do that. You couldn't mobilize like Pepsi and Coke did in those days. So it's not like this is a new phenomenon. It's just the tools that we've got to do it are so much more powerful than we've ever had before, and many consumers are drunk on this power. And what we've got now is this huge issue of trust, because who do you trust? People did used to trust the big brands. They used to trust the newspapers. They used to trust the voices of authority that told them what they had to believe.
We don't trust clout.
Sorry?
We don't trust clout.
Don't trust clout. No, that's another debate. You're quite right there. So we've got this issue of trust, and we all know the stat. It's an old one. Nielsen did the study a few years ago. 90% of people trust recommendations from people they know, right? Makes sense. If I know you and I say, my car's really great, you're going to believe me. My car's really great. You might be more open to buying one next time you get a car. Let's break that data down. Right at the top there, recommendations to people I know. Trust completely, trust somewhat. That's your 90%. Look at how it drops off. These are the key categories that Nielsen looked at. Brand websites, around about 70%. Consumer opinions posted online, editorial content, and it goes down and down and down, down to one of my personal pet hates, text ads on mobile phones. Absolutely, you have no trust in them at all. And unscientifically, if you draw a line on this thing, you can sort of say, well, above 70% or thereabouts, you've got this stuff which people trust, therefore that would be good. And below it, you've got stuff that people trust less, which is perhaps less potent, less useful for us. And in my terminology, this is my language, I describe the stuff at the top as conversing and the stuff at the bottom as shouting, advertising. Shouting your message from your ivory tower to get people to hear you in the hope that they will respond to that. Now, it's not a perfect line, but look, it's all about advertising and things like that down at the bottom. And that's what we need to do. We need to shift from shouting to conversing. I'll come back to that. And all of this stuff here you see about advertising, I want to really, if you work in a big company and you get that brief that says, oh, we're launching this thing, and we're going to do this big awareness campaign, I don't get it. To my mind, there is no such thing today as an awareness campaign. Because if you've done it right, you're only ever one click from purchase. You're one click away. Why would you do an awareness campaign that's so short-sighted? Now, I'm not saying there isn't a role for it. It takes, there are big brands, there are small brands, and sometimes you have to nurture the marketplace and build trust to a point where then you can put that one click in place. But for many businesses, doing awareness campaign advertising is satisfying the needs of the marketing advertising agencies' needs. It's not necessarily the right thing for brands.
I think
Hi.
you might be right for B2C, but for B2B, awareness campaigns are critical.
Yes, they are, but you can still be one click away. And I would challenge, I work largely in B2B.
We're not one click away from selling millions of pounds.
No, you're not click away from the sale, but you're click away from some data tracking, some insights about that customer, the ability to talk to them on the phone, to connect them to LinkedIn, do a million things, whatever's right for your business. You're still one click away. And yes, the journey is longer in B2B, but it can still be that start point can be what gets you to the end point, right? It is different, I appreciate that. And so at Microsoft, what we tried to do is we tried to spend about 80% of our budget on digital marketing. Now, the only thing really that we spend money on that's not digital is TV nowadays, because frankly, everything is, right? And I sort of struggle even with the notion of being the head of digital marketing strategy, because it's seen as all marketing is digital. Am I the head of everything now? Am I? I can't do that. So we try to spend about 80%, but we have to also understand this concept of this is the old-fashioned Sheltie Bit, right? We're spending the money, we're buying attention. We might be doing it in nice ways through new channels, we might be doing beautiful advertising, whatever, but that's kind of the Sheltie Bit. There's all this other stuff in your owned network, right? So you own your websites, the brochures, the packaging, the van signage, the sign outside your building, all of this stuff you own, right? It's a channel, you can do stuff with it, and you can actually make sign outside a building, if it's appropriate, you can make it digital. It doesn't actually cost that much. You could have a dynamic sign, or you could just have a QR code on there to encourage people to find out what the heck goes on behind the door. So it's all of those things, but there's also this earn stuff. You earn media, and this is where it's really exciting as a marketeer, because now you're not paying for it, it's people talking about you because you've got something useful to say. So it's all of these channels, but it's also the conversations at the pub. It's when people get excited when you do something like Connect at Microsoft. That's earned media, that's buzz, excitement, right? So we have to think about those areas. And that's why we're doing a ton of work to try to get our hands around this social media thing. We have more reports than you can shake a stick at Microsoft, looking at what's going on, ups, downs, seeing what works. And if you've not got this stuff, this is what advertising becomes. For you, it's now become the cost of not being in the conversation, of being outside of the conversation. Hugh MacLeod, the cartoonist, called this the cost of being boring, which is even more succinct than my definition. But if that's all you've got, if you have no conversation, if you don't get this stuff, all you've got left is advertising. And the bad news is it's going to be less efficient tomorrow than it is today, and forevermore, because the genie's out of the bottle and people have the ability to talk about stuff. You better get used to it. So at Microsoft, we have our products, and we do things like this is the Windows Phone 7, you get similar functionality on other things, but I just look at a contact, I can see the updates from that person on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, whichever social networks I've connected. I don't have to go to an app, it's just there. I'm looking for that person, I want to phone them, but I can see they're at the beach, I'm not going to phone them, right? I can post comments straight away, I can just move really quickly from doing something like looking up a contact to make a call to sharing some information and get out again. So this is the way that technology is being designed now. It's not about standalone. It just permeates everything that we do. And that's why things like this, I find this is great fun to do. If you've got an event on or something, you can on Twitter, on Bing, you can just map tweets as they happen. So this is where I work, by the way. These are Microsoft campus, got 5 buildings, and I can just go in there and I can see who's tweeting. So what's going on? There's a cluster of tweets around here. I can see there's a photo shared up here, and I can instantly see what's going on around me, and I get a sense of what's on them people's minds. It's a really great tool. That's why with things like email, good old-fashioned Outlook, well, it's actually the bit down the bottom that interests me, because if I put the Outlook connectors, which are free, I can now get feeds coming from Facebook and LinkedIn. So rather than looking at that guy and saying, who sent me this? I can instantly see if it's one of my contacts, what their updates are, what I've shared with them. I can see he's been in Zurich, so I've got a conversation starter. And these people here, the silhouettes, I'm getting really suspicious about you people, because what have you got to hide? And doesn't mean I have to be connected to everybody, but obviously where there's a face, it's someone that I'm connected to who's in my network. But if there's nothing there, and really there is nothing there, so you're not on any of these networks, you're not doing any of this stuff for yourself, then increasingly you become a bit of a mysterious individual, and people will be slightly suspicious of you. It's like, what have you got to hide? So take a look at that silhouette, by the way, is Bill Gates when he got arrested for speeding. One of the developers put it in there, and it was only after we launched the product we realised what he'd done. So that's the interesting stuff in the email, is the stuff below the line that I can see what people are up to. That's why for a site like this, which is just our case study site, right? And I could say this because I'm responsible for this one. It's pretty dull, really. You know, it's just case studies about people using Microsoft stuff. But look at the amount of social content we got on here. We can say how many people have viewed it, who's rated it, if they've shared it. We make it easy to go to bookmarking sites. You can email it, and there's even for the masochists an RSS feed, so you can get this stuff coming down at you all day long. So if your site or the businesses that you work with don't have this sort of capability, and this is really basic, this is not a clever example at all, then you're not allowing people, if they see this thing, they think, oh, that's really great, they might be a connector and they want to just share it with one person, but that one person happens to have a $1 million budget right now that's perfect for this moment. If you're not making it easy for them to share it through the social web, you are losing out on business.